Today I'm going to talk about what I know about cooking sticky rice. If you want to serve sticky rice instead of a white rice or brown rice or black rice, then you want that rice to be slightly harder, okay, chewier. In the dessert form, you don't want the sticky rice, the cooked sticky rice, to be dry. It should be wetter and softer. It has a nice, soft and chewy texture. And that's what people love about sticky rice, is that it's chewiness. There's two ways that we can cook sticky rice. One is in a rice cooker, or if your Instant Pot has a rice setting, you can also cook that in the Instant Pot as well. Just use the rice setting. If you have a rice cooker that has a line that says sweet rice, that's great, okay? Because it tells you the cup and it tells you the water level. So that makes it a lot easier. All you have to do is follow that. But let's say in my case, in this rice cooker, I don't have that. I only have rice and porridge, so I don't have that. The key is to remember, again, how wet do you want your rice to be. If you want the rice to be dry, the water level should be 80% less than you would cook white rice. If you're cooking this rice,
what's up with all these appliances giving the symphonies? Just 2 beeps is enough.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the music. Nice interlude. Okay, so if you were to cook the sweet rice for dessert, then maybe 90 to 100% the water level would be ideal. Again, for dessert, you want that softer texture. Okay, what else? If you were to steam, which I'm about to do, which I like to do, I feel like I have more control of the texture, is that usually if it's not a whole lot of rice that I'm making, so I just use a flat bowl like this. I brush it with a little bit of oil, okay, and then I strain the rice, and then I level out the rice in this flat bowl. But since I'm cooking I'm steaming 2 cups of rice, then I use a steam basket. And since my steam basket has holes, then I need a cheesecloth to catch the rice. But this cheesecloth, what we need to do is that we have to wet it really good. Otherwise, the rice will stick to it. It has to be dripping wet.
Hey everyone, it's Caitlin here from the Editing Bay, and one thing that my mom forgot to make overtly clear is that regardless of cooking method, you do have to soak your sticky rice. We recommend soaking your rice anywhere from 6 to 24 hours. If you're using a rice cooker, you can go on and bump this down to 2 hours, but the ideal range is still going to be 6 to 24 hours. So if you know that you want to eat sticky rice, start it the night before.
Okay, so today we're going to start cooking, we're going to cook it the steaming method. And I already have prepared the cheesecloth, the steaming cloth. I wet it really good. Another thing about steaming is it is really important that you have a good amount of water in your steamer. If there's not enough water in your steamer, then it doesn't generate enough steam to cook whatever you're cooking properly, okay? So in your steamer, you should have at least about, I would say, 2 inches of water. Just make sure that when the water bubbles, it doesn't touch your food. Like in my case, there's nothing prevent water from coming up. If I have too much water, then the water is gonna bubble through this cheesecloth and it touches my rice, and then it's gonna ruin the batch. All right, so 1.5 to 2 inches would be ideal. If your steamer is the rack is higher, you can put 3 inches of water. You be the judge based on the tool that you have, okay? Actually, you know what? If you can find one that has a looser weave, that's even better. Oh. Because then the steam can really come up. So finer weaves actually blocks the steam from coming up. through the hose. What we're gonna do is that we're gonna drain the water. Put this rice back here. Okay, move this out of the way. Usually when you soak sticky rice, you have to soak it at least, I would say, 6 hours or overnight. Okay, and then you just spread them out. So if you were to make, in this case, in this method, your rice will come out harder and drier. With the steaming method, the rice is gonna come out harder. Okay, so like I said to you, it's for like when you need the rice to be drier. The application will be 吃饭团 as well as 酒酿, which I forgot to mention earlier. Okay, when you make 酒酿, you cannot have the rice wet. So the rice has to be really dry. And this is the method. And let me add also, if you were to use the steam method, and then you want your rice to be wet for desserts, okay, slightly, slightly mushy, okay, because that's how the dessert is. Then what you could do is that instead of a steam in a vehicle that has holes on the bottom, you want something solid on the bottom. What I learned is that I could do the same process, soak the rice, strain it, and put the rice in this flat, solid bottom container. And then what I do is depends on how wet the rice I want it to be, I put like a couple of tablespoons of water. Okay, if you want the rice wetter, then you just put more. I would say don't put more than 1/3 of a cup to a, let's say, maybe the maximum would be 1/3 of a cup to 2 cups of rice. So then this way, the rice gets cooked, you still got that nice chewy and wetter rice texture. So now the rice is ready to go on a steamer. Make sure you pre-boil the rice, the water in your steamer, and then you cook this for 30 to 45 minutes. A lot of people commented that they can't get the rice soft enough. So the steam process is not going to get the rice softer. It's just going to cook the rice, okay? The softness comes from the liquid that you put into the rice. Meaning says, in this case, you could steam it for 2 hours. This rice is not going to get wetter, okay? But then if you want that, you need to go back to this method where you add water to the rice when you steam it. Hopefully I answered that question. Okay, so there's about, I would say, 2.5 inches of water in here. The reason also you want a lot of water is that because this thing has to steam on high heat for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. The water will cook off during the process, and you don't want to be completely dry towards the end of the cooking process. So now I'm gonna pre-boil the water, and then I'm gonna steam it. Okay.
It's boiling.
Okay, good. Okay. Look how pretty. Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. Make sure it's even so it cooks evenly. Okay. And then water's boiling. And this is going in.
So if people use a bamboo steamer,
Yes.
then what?
If you use a bamboo steamer, Depends on the size of your bamboo steamer. You may have to divide the rice. Most likely, you probably have to divide the rice. If you have the one that's this big, like 10, 12 inches, you can use one level. But if you have smaller ones, like 6, 8 inches, you should divide the rice into 2 levels, and you can stack them together. Okay? By the way, I think a steamer is a great investment. I use this thing every day, literally multiple times a day. By the way, I don't use microwave. I use my steamer.
Okay, so it'll cook on
I would
high.
say cook on high, but you know what? In my case, this water is a little too high, so I would say medium high. Once the water is boiled, medium high is good. And if your BTU is low, leave it on high. Okay. And you know what? You have to pay attention. Make sure you check the water. You don't want to burn out the liquid. Okay. That's it. Here's some interesting lessons that I learned from eating many years of sticky rice. Sticky rice, once cold, it will get harder. 翻身, that's like the Chinese word of like the rice is like reverting back to its original form. Okay, the water gets evaporated from the cooked rice and it's kind of like going back to that raw state. It will get harder as it dries or it gets cold. So keep that in mind. But the good thing is that once it's heated up, okay, it will rehydrate itself in this case. Another thing that you know the elders always tell you is when it comes to sticky rice, don't eat too much. Okay, when you eat too much, it's actually a very difficult, you know, food for your stomach to digest. So the more you eat, and then you feel like eating a lot of potatoes, like say potato, it just sticks there, and it's very difficult for your digestive system to process it. So always be sensible and don't eat too much when it comes to sweet rice, sticky rice, also known as sweet rice. So before I finish eating this batch of sticky rice, Daddy, what other application we can do for sticky rice?
Fried rice.
Fried rice.
Sticky fried rice, because you have nice little grains, and they're not all munched together, so it's a drier rice for sticky fried rice. Just like when you do fried rice, you also want to have individual grains. You don't want your rice too mushy. This will make sure that your sticky rice is not just one big giant clump. So for example, our stuffed sticky rice with a crab dish in our cookbook, we also steam the sticky rice, so it's a little bit drier and nicer. For when we stuff things, like Sarah, her favorite dish where she stuffs the chicken thighs, right? We also have to fry that rice, and it sort of melts together during the oven time for that chicken.
Baking time, yeah.
Yeah, but it starts out as sticky fried rice and
Cooked.
Yeah.
This is why it's so necessary to learn how to make this, you know, from scratch. It's a starting point for many dishes.
Are you going to show them how to do the rice cooker sticky rice? Because that's what we do.
Sure.
We used to do.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
People that have
That's
rice
easy.
cooker.
That is easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
It's just like controlling the water level. That is the key. The water level controls everything. The rice cook does the job, but you control it.
You like that sticky rice, don't you?
I know, it gets to me. Just the texture. In the rice cooker, the rice is gonna always come out a little softer, okay? And slightly, in that case, when you open the lid, it's gonna look wetter to you. But just fluff it out and air out the steam, it will get to the texture of your liking. Okay, we are trying out the rice cook method, which you still have to pre-soak the rice. I soaked it for 2 hours. You can soak it overnight, whichever is easy, but 2 hours is a good base. This is where the question comes. How much water do you put in this rice, okay? Again, it goes back to how you're gonna use it. What are you gonna do with it? Since I tend to make more savory dishes and less sweet dishes, so I'm gonna go for the drier version of this, okay? After soaking, you dump out the extra water. You just leave enough water to cover the rice. Just like make sure all the rice evenly, shake it like this, and then make sure that the rice is flat, and then just leave enough water that the water is slightly above the rice. So all the rice should be under the water, okay? Every rice cooker cooks rice differently. My rice cooker, here it says soak rice for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and then it cooks for 15 minutes, and then it says do not stir or do not lift the cover, and let it basically steam in the heat, in its own heat for another 15 minutes, then it's ready. So I'm gonna follow that instruction on mine. And you basically, your rice cook the best. So you follow your own instinct in this case. All right? I have 1.5 cups rice in here. You can cook 4 cups of rice, okay? But the water level has to be just above the rice. Okay, the rice is done, and it's been sitting in the steam for 15 additional minutes, so it's been kept warm. So let's see. Oh, it's pretty wet. See?
It looks pretty good to me.
Really? It's wet.
I think that once it airs out, it's fine.
Ooh, yeah, they get individual kernels. But you know what's wrong with the, I guess, why I personally don't use a rice cooker is that you can see that it has a little crust on the bottom.
Yeah.
You get little crust. It's like, it's for certain applications. For savory dish, maybe it's okay. But then again, you know what? Once the air dries up a little bit, and wait a couple of minutes, and when it cools a little bit, maybe it's not bad. But the fact that you see individual kernels, that's promising, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit more sticky than the steamer method.
Mm-hmm. It is, but not bad.
It's good.
Yeah. So that means, hey, I can even adjust the water. I can reduce the water even further. Okay, and maybe I'm doing it at the rice level next time. So here it is. Oh, it's actually, you know what, guy? It's actually drying out as we speak.
That's exactly like
Yeah, it's drying out as we speak. So
it looks perfect to me.
yeah.
I would be doing this for ease.
Yeah, we all have different definitions of ease, right? I find that steaming is very easy. I think, you know what, this is pretty successful. I consider this a success. So this is how you cook sticky rice. Steamer or with a rice cooker, both ways. I think it looks pretty good.
Me too.
Made it into a quick fried rice with whatever the stuff I had. Little ground meat, peas, broccoli stand, soy sauce, and then Kaylin put some extra sauce in it. Is she fancy? Pretty happy with the outcome.
It's good. I didn't want you to do anything yet. So I guess I got it.
See it? This is the tool, a strainer.
Okay, so let's do it in the rice cooker. Let's do it in the rice cooker. Man. Action on sticky rice.